Hello, I'm Raider Pilot Steve, and this is my review of the Duxford Flying Day, The Americans 2025, which was held at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford. The show focused on the general theme of American aviation and featured quite a large number of visiting aircraft. The weather was warm, sunny, with some lovely skies, though it did get quite cloudy during the majority of the flying display. Whilst looking around one of the main hangars, I saw that the Fighter Collection's Curtiss P-36C Hawk was being gradually disassembled for being shipped to its new owner in the United States. I hope it is able to keep flying and not just put in a museum. The Fighter Collection's latest acquisition was also out on display, the Western Lysander Mark III. It is currently in pieces, but will hopefully join the UK airshow season in a not too distant future. One of the other hangars was also open on the outside, which enabled me to finally get a half-decent shot of the Hawker Tempest Mark II from Fighter Aviation Engineering Limited, which flew for the first time in 2023 but has yet to display publicly. The main showground had an interesting array of aircraft on display. The Canadian Vickers PPV-1A Kanzo A from Plain Sailing was open for visitors prior to the main flying display. Throughout the showground was a selection of observation aircraft, including a rare Aeroncar 058B Grasshopper that served with the United States Army Air Force, a Piper L4H Grasshopper which took part in the Battle of the Bulge, a Piper L4J Grasshopper that also served with the United States Army Air Force, and a Taylorcraft Model D which served under the Royal Air Force until 1946. Paul Ford's beautiful replicas were also out on display. These were the Fokker D7 and Fokker DR1 replicas. There was also a pair of American racing aircraft out on the grass. This was Pete Kinsey's Levier Cosmic Wind Ballerina and a privately owned kit-built Monet Soranai 2L, a type that I have never seen before. One of the stars of the show would have been the resident Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress Sally B, but technical problems would prevent this from happening, despite the best efforts of the B-17 preservation team. The bomber was still viewable along the main flight line, along with some other visiting vintage types, including Peter Kuiper's Beechcraft Staggerwing, painted to represent an aircraft attached to 24th Squadron, a visiting Boeing Stearman Cadet in a classic silver United States Army Air Force scheme, the Fighter Collection's Gloucester Gladiator Mark II, one of only two airworthy examples in the world, Hurricane 501's Hawker Hurricane Mark I, a genuine Battle of Britain veteran, a Nordin AT-16 Harvard 2B, which was in continuous military service from 1944 till 2016, Northwind Limited's North American P-51D Mustang Marinelle, an old Warden-based Pitts S1S Special, a Supermarine Spitfire T9 from the Biggin Hill Heritage Hangar, and finally a Yakovlev Yak-52 in silver and red colours. There was also quite a few general aviation types, including a CAA Jodel DR-1051 Sicily, a Cessna 172N Skyhawk, a Cessna 421C Golden Eagle, a Cirrus SR-22 G3, a Cirrus SR-22T, a Diamond DA-42NG Twin Star, a Piper PA-28 Archer II owned by Golden Lion Aviation Limited, a Piper PA-28 Archer III, a Reims FRA 150L Aerobat, a Sakata TB-10 Tobago, and finally a Vans RV-8. As the show is held on a Friday, it enables some modern representation from the United States Air Forces in Europe to attend the event. The flying got underway with a trio of fast jets, featuring a pair of Lockheed Martin F-35A Lightning IIs and a single McDonnell Douglas F-15E Strike Eagle. The jets arrived in formation before peeling off and performing some relatively gentle circuits around the airfield, before reforming and departing in formation. The Lightnings were part of the 495th Fighter Squadron, known as the Valkyries, and the Eagle is part of the 492nd Fighter Squadron, known as the Mad Hatters, and both fall under the 48th Fighter Wing based at RAF Lakenheath. Next up was one of the most iconic American fighters of the Second World War, the Republic P-47D Thunderbolt Nellie B. This example is operated by Fighter Aviation Engineering Limited and put on an extended display due to the B-17 not being able to fly. Unusually for an American show was the inclusion of the Russian-built Yakovlev Yak-52. This trainer's connection to the theme was that it wears the colours of the 353rd Fighter Group and even has their emblem, the sly bird, displayed on its tail. The Yak-52 put on an entertaining aerobatic routine in the murky skies. Returning back to American-built aircraft was the Casset Racer 3M, a small home-built kit aircraft that was designed to compete in Formula One air racing. This particular aircraft displays the name Nemesis on its engine cover. This was followed by a short aerobatic display by a Pitts S1D Special. This example was part of the now defunct Trig aerobatic team, whose colours it still wears. Following that was two heavy twin-engine types. Plain Sailing's Canadian Vickers PBV-1A Kanzo A was joined in the air by the Commemorative Air Force's Douglas R4D6S Dakota, ready for duty. The pair flew a series of flypasts while sharing the same airspace, an appropriate combination due to the naval connection. This was also one of the last air displays conducted by the Dakota before it would return back home to Texas. The penultimate display came courtesy of the Fighter Collection, with their Curtiss Hawk 75A1 and Curtiss P-40F Kitty Hawk Mark II Lee's Hope, who arrived in loose formation before conducting consecutive solo displays. The Hawk 75 is one of only two airworthy examples of the P-36 in the world, and the P-40F is a very rare Merlin-powered example of the Kitty Hawk. The show was closed by a unique formation of vintage aircraft, showcasing the transition of piston power to jet power. This display featured the Duxford debut of the Canadair CL-13B Sabre Mark VI from Mistral Warbirds, the CAC CA-18 Mustang Jersey Jerk from Fighter Aviation Engineering Limited, and the Grumman F8F2P Bearcat from the Fighter Collection. The trio flew in formation for 3 fantastic passes before separating to enable the Sabre to display solo. The jet put on a very polished routine despite the overland restrictions still in place for swept-wing vintage jets. The piston fighters then returned for their own individual routines, which were also excellent. In conclusion, the Duxford Flying Day The Americans 2025 was a very lovely event with a lot more going on in the showgrounds than other flying days. The flying display was short but packed full of quality display items. My personal highlight was the visiting Sabre, which was made all the more special with it flying with the Mustang and Bearcat. I also loved the United States Air Force's contribution of F-35As and F-15E, a sight you won't get to see at most air shows in the UK. If you wish to see more of my photos from this event and others, I've linked my Flickr page in the description below. My next show will be both days of DH600 being held at Old Warden, which will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the de Havilland DH60 Moth. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you join me in the next one. Bye.